Hello, and welcome to Cocktails with a Twist of History, your digital destination for all things cocktails. I can't believe I've done this many shows and haven't talked about the Manhattan yet. It's a classic cocktail, one of the earliest to use vermouth, some say it actually was the first, and a must-have for your cocktail repertoire. But first, I want you to remember to subscribe, I want you to remember to follow, and I want you to like the show and send a link to somebody that you know so that they can enjoy the show as well. The exact origins of the Manhattan cocktail is debated, but it likely evolved from the New York bar scene either in the 1860s or the 1870s. The first time we see it was in a bar book in 1884 in an early bartender's guide. This was called the Modern Bartender's Guide by a man named O.H. Byron. I like the fact that they call it modern and it was from 1884. The Manhattan is an old-fashioned with vermouth, but it really changes it to make it an entirely different cocktail. We know that the first time the cocktail is mentioned in a newspaper was in a newspaper called the New York Letter, and that was on September 5th, 1882. They were talking about the idea that cocktails were becoming very popular and a new exciting tastes were coming out. It says, quote, "It was a short time ago," remember this is published in 1882, "that the mixture of whiskey, vermouth, and bitters came into vogue." They say it was sometimes called the Manhattan cocktail, sometimes called the Turf Club, and sometimes the Jockey Club. Interesting, it says that at first, bartenders didn't know about it, but by the time the article was printed, everybody seems to know about this Manhattan cocktail. The Manhattan was thought to be created on December 29th, 1874, at a New York City club called the Manhattan Club. It was a party for the new governor, Governor Samuel Jones Tilden. And it was said that there was a special guest, Lady Randolph Churchill. This was Winston Churchill's mother. The historian David Wondrich, we've talked about him before, says that Lady Churchill was giving birth to Winston Churchill in England at the end of November of 1874, so it's very unlikely that she was actually at this party. My theory is that the Manhattan Club has a connection to the Churchills and Churchill's mother, and so they borrowed her name. And then the story grew from there that she was actually at the party. This happens because bar stories get bigger as they get told, and the more often they're told, the bigger they get. By the way, the Manhattan Club is still around on 26th Street in New York City. Okay, I have been talking way too long without a drink in my hand, so let's make a cocktail. Let's make a Manhattan. The Manhattan is a stirred cocktail. And it's easy to remember because it's 212, like the area code for Manhattan. So we are going to need 2 ounces of rye whiskey. Rye whiskey was probably the predominant whiskey used at this time in the late 1800s. Yes, they used a lot of bourbon as well, but they probably used just as much or maybe more rye. Over the years, one became a little more popular than the others. So it's 2 ounces of rye whiskey, 1 ounce of a sweet vermouth, and 2 dashes of aromatics bitters. Here I'm using Angostura. Angostura is the most common one. Okay, so now we are going to put our ice in it. And like I always say, you need a lot of ice, particularly on a stirred cocktail. On a shaken cocktail, the shaking will make it colder. And so sometimes you don't even need as much ice. If you are stirring it, you need to put a lot of ice in it. And we stir. It does not need a lot of stirring, but it's a good 15-20 seconds worth of stirring. I may not do it all, but here we go. You can feel already that it's starting to get very cold. And this is going to go into a coupe glass. Sometimes they'll put it into an old-fashioned glass, but usually you'll find it more often in a coupe glass. And like I always say, if you have a little bit extra, Don't leave it in the ice. It will just get watery and ruin your cocktail. One other thing that people seem to agree on is that this must have a cherry as a garnish. I don't know. Even the places that you say, no, it's bourbon, it's not rye, they always seem to say, let's have a cherry. Let's try it. This is a Manhattan cocktail. Ooh, very interesting. The rye is a little spicier than the bourbon, and you can feel that. The sweet vermouth comes up front. The bitters, I'm not feeling as much. Maybe I would have put a little bit more bitters. I don't know. But it is a very good cocktail. And like I say, one of the classics. The Manhattan works so well because it's simple. There's 3 ingredients, and it achieves a perfect balance. There's complex flavors. There's spirit forward of the whiskey, the herbal sweetness of the sweet vermouth, and the aromatic complexity from the bitters. The balance creates the drink that is both strong and sophisticated. It has layers of sweetness, spice, and depth. There were those that say that it was actually connected to the 212 area code, and that was why they called it the Manhattan. This doesn't make any sense because the 212 area code was established in October of 1947, and it was one of the original area codes, but this was clearly a drink from the 1860s or 1870s. It was already in the newspapers in the 1880s, so it couldn't be from the area code. Anyway, like always, if you know other pieces of the story, we want to hear it. So you can put it in the comments, you can send it to us by email, or you can tell it to the bottle. We want to know. Also, please make sure to like, please make sure to follow and subscribe, and to send a link of this show so that other people can enjoy cocktails with a twist of history. Thank you.